Hello people, how's it going? Scotty. So we know that Venezuela has been facing a lot of problems, especially with regards to the food shortages and things such as the blackouts, etc.
Speaking in a live television broadcast that was twice interrupted by the problem. The OPEC nation has suffered an increasing incidence of power outages in recent years, which critics have attributed to low electricity tariffs and limited state investment following the 2007 nationalization of the power sector.
But there's a very good reason for why this has occurred. Socialists invariably tell you that this is the fault to do with the United States of America. They blame the United States on a US embargo of Cuba when it came to their food shortages, even blaming the United States on Venezuela, and this is what they currently blame the United States for, things such as the food shortages.
Long queues outside supermarkets are an all too common sight in Caracas these days. People wait for 1, 2 or even 3 hours to buy basic foodstuffs, which are in short supply in Venezuela.
As I explained people, prices are very important. I did point out, of course, in my video on pricing that prices are vitally important. They're not obstacles for getting what you want, they're basically signals in the market, and it's vitally important to understand pricing, so this is why I want to explain this.
I'm no communist, I'll tell you that right now. I believe a man should own his own house and car and cow. I like this private ownership, I want to be left alone. Let the government run its business and let me run my own.
So why is it then that the likes of Venezuela face food shortages? Simply because of price controls. Why would price controls cause that?
I'm queuing to buy toilet paper, flour, butter, whatever there is in the shop.
And sometimes, after hours of waiting, people still leave empty-handed.
I came to see if I can find some products, but from what I can see, there's nothing but a queue.
So there's two different kinds of, price controls. You've got your price floors and price ceilings. A price floor is the opposite of a price ceiling. A price floor would be basically where the government would artificially raise the cost of something. Perfect example would be the national minimum wage, where the government would set a minimum price that you can't go below that. But in relation to do with why the food shortages had occurred, we will speak about the price ceilings, because this is essentially what the government set when it came to causing food shortages. So why would a price ceiling cause the food shortages? Well, it's rather quite simple, people, and let me give you an example. Imagine for a second that you were a business owner and your business was producing and selling microphones. And let's just say, for example, that you were producing a specific type of microphone and it cost you £100 to produce each microphone that you produce. So already you have to take into consideration your, production costs. Now, if you've got your production costs of £100, you're going to have to sell your product for more than £100, aren't you? Of course you are, because you're going to have to try and drive a profit. Because it's costing you £100 to produce, you're going to have to sell it for more than £100. After all, the goal of a business is to make a profit. Okay, so it's £100 production costs. You're going to have to sell it for more than £100. Let's say you set it at, £200 for selling it. So it costs you £100 to produce each microphone. You're going to sell it for £200 because the market, let's just pretend the market, meaning the consumers, accept that price of £200. After all, it's really the market, it's really the consumers that matter most. It's what they value the product at, right? So let's just pretend that the market value of the product is £200 and people accept that cost, and of course people are buying the microphone at £200. Let's just then say, for example, the government steps in. So let's just say the government is going to now set a price ceiling. As I explained, the price ceiling is basically where the government would artificially lower the cost, set a maximum cost so that the cost couldn't go above that. So it's going to set a maximum price, right? So the government would step in It's costing you £100 to produce. You're going to be selling your microphones at £200, but then let's just say, for argument's sake, the government sets a price ceiling of, let's say, £50, right? So the government's going to set a price ceiling of £50 on your microphones, right? What that means is your price cannot go above £50. So as I say, a price ceiling is where the government would artificially lower the costs. This would of course drive up consumers' demand, but the massive problem is you're driving up consumers' demand from an artificially lowered cost, and you've destroyed the incentive for the business to produce more, simply because the business is not going to produce at a loss. If it costs £100 to produce each microphone, they're going to have to sell for more than that. If they're being forced by an artificially lowered cost of, say, £50, a maximum price of the product, then they're immediately making at least a £50 loss. So essentially what is happening is that due to the loss they're making, it destroys the incentive for them to basically produce more. So as I say, businesses' incentive and what their main goal is to make a profit, especially if they're going to have to produce more in order to sell for their customers. So not only is it hurting the business, it's hurting the consumers as a whole, because as we say, when we speak about supply and demand, when you produce less of something, and like I explained in that video, when you produce less of something, there's a higher cost. It's because there's less produce. It's in relation to do with supply and demand. So immediately there is that problem, because at the end of the day, if you're destroying the incentive of producing more, then there's less of it to go around. And this was basically caused by government's price controls through setting a price ceiling, and this relates to so many things. We could talk about, for example, an energy crisis that hit New York. It was a blackout they faced, and I think it was back in 2003 in August, and that was essentially caused not by a lack of regulation. In fact, it was over-regulated. It was actually caused by price controls, and this is no different to every other situation. We saw the example in 1973 with regards to a shortage of oil at the pump. This oil crisis we faced in 1973 in Great Britain, it was all thanks to President Nixon's price controls. And it's the exact same thing when you have that situation like Venezuela. Venezuela is facing those food shortages because what the government did was artificially lower the costs below market value, destroyed the incentive for businesses to produce more, and therefore all you're doing is driving businesses out of the country. Businesses don't want to run a business if they're going to be running at a loss. There's no point. Then they're not making a living. You have to remember, a business owner has to make a profit if they want to make a living for themselves, as well, of course, provide for its consumers. And this is the very reason why you're seeing things like shortage of toilet paper, etc. in Venezuela. So it doesn't just affect the business, it affects, of course, the consumers. So people, if you've got any questions or that, feel free to ask me in the comment section below, and I will be sure to get back to you. And of course, thank you for watching my video. I shall talk to you later. So people, thank you for watching my video. You can also check out the 2 other videos there, 2 which I had recently done, debunking angry bastards, one on supply and demand, the other on Hong Kong, etc. And of course, I do also have my vlog channel. I just recently got that up and running, so you can check out my vlog channel. I know a number of people were subscribed to me in the past and loved all my other videos like Scottish accent, all these other random stuff, so you can also check out that channel as well, which I will leave that so you can go and check out. What else can I tell you? Basically getting on with other stuff. I will of course get a video done on the NHS and things like that, and I have had other requests. So anyway, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video below, as it helps getting more exposure and views, etc. to the videos, as it helps a lot. And of course you can share the video and that, and favourite the video or whatever. And of course, thank you for watching the video, and I shall talk to you later. Cheers.